Tell me, why did we buy this camera?
Today's video is a bit different because I will mostly be sitting here and talking. This afternoon I was filming a video for my other channel and I set up my teleprompter right here. After I finished editing the video, I was amazed by the looks of the video from this camera. I mean, this camera. Especially when I compare it with the camera I used to use for the past 2 years. This guy here. I didn't use this one for past 2 years because it just got out a year ago, so I was using it for 1 year. But prior to that, I was using iPhone 7 and iPhone 11. I mean, this video I'm going to play right now was shot on this exact spot from a slightly different angle and slightly different lighting. But just look at the difference. I know it's comparing apples to oranges, but 4 years ago I used to shoot on Nikon D3200, and compared to that footage, this one looks way better. Yes, it was shot in a different environment and different lighting settings, but still the difference is obvious. I assume that most of you watching this video are actually buying your first camera or your first full frame camera, or you're upgrading from an older version and you're trying to figure out whether this is a good buy or not. And this video is for you. If you already have Sony A1 or even A7 III or any other high-end DSLR or mirrorless camera, then I don't know why you would even consider buying this camera. First of all, let's address why I decided to buy Sony A7C instead of A7 IV. The main reason is
because I said so.
I don't lie. I never lie. The other big reason is the price. Where I currently live, which is China, Sony A7 IV is currently available on pre-sale for somewhere around 20,000 RMB, which is 3,100 US dollars. Sony A7C, on the other hand, is somewhere around 11,000 RMB, which is 1,700 USD. And that's a big difference. I'm a hybrid shooter and therefore I needed something that performs well in video and photography. And Sony A7C was just the answer. Yes, the A7 IV is even better hybrid camera, but am I really getting double the quality for double the price, especially for my needs? For the price difference between Sony A7C and Sony A7 IV, I was able to buy 2 lights, a microphone, variable ND filters, and a Tamron 70 to 28mm lens, which is my entire vlogging setup. So this is my entire vlogging setup for the price of a just body for Sony A7 IV. If I wanted to vlog on A7 IV, I would have to spend an additional 9,000 RMB, which is $1,400. And that's a lot of money. Since I use this camera for vlogging, I don't need 10-bit footage. I don't color grade it. Almost every video you see on this channel is shot on standard picture profile. And all I do in post-production is slight vibrance boost. I only shot the first 2 videos on this channel in S-Log 2 and color graded them, but I decided to switch to a standard profile so I could post more often, since color grading takes a lot of time and that would drastically slow down my production. In my opinion, the footage looks great, especially compared to my previous cameras, both iPhone and Nikon D3200. If you've seen some other reviews of this camera, you might have heard something like, this camera doesn't have enough buttons or dials. The grip is shitty, but not as shitty as eevee Finder or display. So let's talk about that. If you ask me, it has way too many buttons, because when I'm out shooting videos or photos, I don't use most of them. When I'm shooting videos, I set my aperture to 2.8 because I want that shallow depth of field. I set shutter speed to 50 because I shoot in 24 frames per second, and if I'm indoor or somewhere with non-variable light source, I set my ISO somewhere between 100 and 400. Right now it's 800 because I only use this light and this background light and it's too dark inside. And I don't touch anything. Once I set it up, I don't touch anything except the record button. If I'm outside walking and the lighting is changing, I set my ISO to auto and help it with variable ND filter like this. When I'm shooting photos, I tend to use the dials more often, and yes, it would be nice to have the third dial, one for ISO, one for the aperture, and one for shutter speed. But since I tend to control my lighting through shutter speed anyway, I don't really miss the third dial, especially if I consider the fact that the iPhone didn't have a single dial and the Nikon D3200 had only one, so I'm used to mostly one dial. This is actually a huge upgrade for me when it comes to dials and the buttons, and I still don't know what to do with most of the buttons which I can customize and set whatever I like. I mainly use this FN function button, I made shortcuts and choose whatever I want from there and just do what's necessary. But this is my main button, the red one, record. That's what I mainly use. Again, if you already have a high-end camera and you already got used to using all the buttons and dials, I can perfectly understand why you need more buttons. But for someone like me, these are more than enough. eevee Finder, this little thing here, is not perfect, I must agree. It could be better. But I used it on a bright sunny day and it worked just fine. It did its job. I could see, I could frame the picture, I could see if I'm in focus or not. Didn't miss a shot. The display also isn't perfect. On a bright sunny day, it can show you that if you're browsing your pictures, it can show that they're slightly overexposed, but don't worry. Once you open them in the computer, they look just fine. Just make sure you're not overexposing by using zebras or histograms. Simple as that. What's more important about the screen, it's the fact that it's a flippy screen. Look, I knew I'd be using this for vlogging. And that's the reason I didn't buy Sony A7 III, which has more buttons, but it doesn't have a flippy screen. Flippy screen was more important to me than the buttons, because again, I'm using this for vlogging. I have the same to say for the grip. Works fine for me. I do have big hands, but I can still grip it fine and make sure it's secure. If I feel insecure, I just put the strap. Yes, it could be deeper and bigger, but you can always buy a cage for a camera and improve your grip. When I vlog, I have a mini tripod, and holding a camera while taking photos is, again, just fine. What I love about this camera is autofocus, which performs great in both photos and videos. The irony is, I had to reshoot this whole video because previous video was entirely out of focus. But do you know why? Because she's out of sight now, but she was shooting cats, and apparently I'm not a cat, so it couldn't see my eye and it focused on my chest all the time. So before you start shooting videos, make sure that, I bet it missed focus during filming this because I can't see myself right now because I'm reading things from teleprompter, but I bet it missed. So just make sure that your eye out of focus is set to human if you're shooting humans, and it's set to cats if you're shooting cats. And use your own camera, don't use other people's cameras. The other thing I like about this camera is low light performance. Again, not as good as Sony A7 III or A1, but way better than iPhone or Nikon D3200, which I used to use, and they had crappy night performance, especially for video. I've been using this camera for almost a month, and it has been a pure delight for both photos and videos, and especially when I compare how my videos looked while filming on iPhone and now on this beast. It's just uncomparable. I mean, footage on iPhone looks great, but compared to this, it's like ages behind. Would I like to have A7 IV? Of course, but it's not in my budget right now. Do I regret buying this Sony A7C? Not at all. Do I miss any of the features that A7 IV has and A7C doesn't have? Not at all, because I never had experience with Sony A7 IV or anything like that. You can't miss something you never had, do you? So, if you need to think about your budget and you want to get into full-frame mirrorless cameras, or you want to upgrade your gear, A7C is definitely a good buy. But if you already have something similar or even better than A7C, just stick whatever you have or buy something better. And if your budget is not a problem, go for A7 IV or A7S III or even A1 if you're that rich, depending on your needs, of course. And that's probably the most important thing. It all depends on your needs. So if this camera, how did you open the door? She's dying. So if this camera fulfills your needs, it's a good buy, and it's a good buy.